So Cop30 is getting underway. I think it officially starts on Monday, but they've all the good and the great, all the lovely leaders who are roostering themselves, preening their virtuous environmental whiskers as they all gather together for the big powwow of Cop30. Yesterday we heard from Keir Starmer, where he mentioned the UK is all in for net zero, but it seems he's also admitted that the consensus is gone on climate change and that cross-party unity on science that is unequivocal, how it used to be apparently, has now splintered both in Britain and globally. We'll talk to Chris Morrison in a moment, environmental editor at the Daily Sceptic. But first, Jessica Woodlock is a reporter who's there at Cop30 in Rio, where I'm sure the weather is far nicer than it is back here. Nice to have you with us, Jessica. I mean, just firstly, give us a little backdrop of what you're seeing there and what it's feeling like to be there amongst the good and the great.
Well, Ian, as you'd know yourself, these things are often some sort of disorganised or organised chaos. But yesterday and this morning, it's very much led towards that chaos. Places are still being built around us here. There's ladders around the place. There's quite literally people in hard hats and high vis. So you very much get the sense that Brazil is still trying to catch up with itself here. Throughout the day yesterday, there was a series of kind of unfortunate events. The televisions and the media centres and streaming rooms weren't working. The food hall wasn't open. And actually at one point, Ian, water in the building stopped. And that wasn't just limited to, the common area for us. It was for that so-called VIP room. So those dignitaries and officials, including the likes of Prince William, including Prime Minister Keir Starmer, so they actually would have had no access to bathrooms or to even to wash their hands for some time. So it certainly got off to a chaotic start here. It's early of day two. So obviously we're hoping things go a bit better today, but chaos is the name of the game at the moment.
That is just, this is straight out of a sitcom, right? So you've got our own Prime Minister and others and leaders and, of course, their entourages. They're all a bit stinky today. Is that one way to discuss? Nobody can have a flipping wash.
Well, I'm sure Prince William might have been looked after.
Oh, he's there as well. I forgot about Prince William.
Yeah, they definitely would have been working on those issues overnight. But definitely, as you mentioned, Cop30 starts on Monday. But this is the UN Climate Summit. This is the only time the world leaders and heads of state will be coming. And 57 of them were welcomed here to Belém City Park yesterday, including UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and he warned all those officials that I mentioned that goal of ensuring that global heating gets no more than 1.5 degrees higher. He said that was virtually impossible, and he said that was a moral failure of those leaders that were in the room. But he said the UN mustn't give up, and he really called for Belém to be a turning point in this. Prince William as well gave a very fired up speech, I have to say, Ian. He mentioned flooding in Wales, and he mentioned how he was really impacted by meeting with people who were affected by Storm Dara at the time and the havoc that it caused to the people that he met with. Keir Starmer, as you mentioned, really hammered that idea home of net zero. And he said the words, Britain is all in. And that was kind of a direct dig. As you mentioned, that those climate skeptics, US President Donald Trump is not here. Others, India, China, are not here today. And that was another point Keir Starmer mentioned, that collective effort was the real concern raised here yesterday, that spirit of collegiality, that spirit of a global fight against climate change was weakening. And the fact that only 57 heads of state here are here, Ian, is further proof of that. That's the lowest number in years and significantly less than last year and less than half than 2 years ago as well.
Wow. So there's a lot to, there's a lot there to debate, of course, in terms of, these are the good and the great of the global elite of leaders and presidents and prime ministers, all the rest of it. They're literally hoping they're going to change the weather, which some people sort of scratch their head a little bit on that and think, well, not quite sure you can do that, but they're hell-bent on making sure that their green credentials are there for all to see. And yet it can't be lost, surely, even on some of the people attending, that they essentially had to cut down a rainforest in order to build the place that it's taking place in.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Ian, because it's a point not a lot of people are aware of. there's obviously huge logistical difficulties to get here, and that's really seen poorer nations locked out. So the situation we have is there's some leaders like Trump choosing not to come, but actually others who've been priced out of coming here due to the logistical difficulties, due to the accommodation shortages. And that point you mentioned, quite literally parts of the Amazon rainforest were cut down to make way for a road. Now, it's a lovely road. I drove on it myself from the airport. It's quite literally has a fresh coat of paint on it. But the fact of the matter is they did cut down parts of the Amazon to make way for this global conference on climate. So, you know, that kind of speaks for itself, and it really doesn't lend itself to the criticism that COP gets of being a talking shop.
And this, officially it gets going on Monday, is that right? I mean, they're all gathering. I'm sure there's a few fringe meetings and maybe a bit of vino has been partaken at this stage. But broadly speaking, the official opening of COP30 is Monday. Is that, am I right in saying that, Jessica?
Yeah, you are. And this is actually the first time that this UN climate summit has taken place before the official opening of COP. And that's just because of the reasons I just spoke about. They were trying to get some of the pressure off the accommodation struggles in the city and the traffic struggles as well. So it'll start on Monday, and then we've 3 weeks. The political week, and where the work really gets done, will be week 2. But often, Ian, these run over time. And yesterday's schedules, even on the opening day, ran over time by 2-3 hours. So it's likely that when the deals are done, we'll be well past those 3 weeks, probably into 3.5 when we see results on the table.
It's going to be interesting watching leaders giving speeches in hard hats and high-vis jackets as the work carries on around them. Jessica, enjoy your time there. It's going to be enlightening. Thank you for speaking with us. That's Jessica Woodlock, journalist at Cop30 in Rio. And that's a little revelation. The thing has hardly been built. They had no water. They couldn't have a shower yesterday. What a stinky old bunch we've got over there at the moment. The extraordinary thing is, of course, is that Keir Starmer comes back from Rio today. He only went there yesterday, day before, something like that. He comes back today before it really gets going. Because, of course, you know, we have Remembrance Sunday and all the rest of it. I'm glad he is coming back for that. But, again, if you want to talk about air miles and environmental issues, then I don't think he's the best example. Chris Morrison is the environment editor at The Daily Sceptic. Always good to gauge your views. Chris, I don't know whether that was a new bit of news for you as well, that we've just learned that this thing is, well, they're still building the place.
No, I've been writing quite a lot about the construction that's needed to go on. There was only 18,000 hotel rooms in Belém. So what they did was that it's an industrial town, and there were all these love motels on the outskirts where you could apparently discuss your business by the hour. And they ripped out all of the apparently dance poles, the leopard skin decor, and the heart-shaped beds. There were thousands of these rooms apparently, and they made them into diplomatic suites where they're now charging $1,000 a night, presumably with the ceiling mirrors.
That's twice what they used to charge in his previous role.
Thrown in at no extra charge. So I mean, they've had to do quite a lot of building, and I'm not surprised that it's not. I'm not there. I don't fancy staying in some out of town motel, but I'm not there primarily because I don't believe in intruding on private grief.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a clown show. Nobody's turned up. Jessica informed us that 57 heads of state have turned up. Only 5 representatives from the G20. In other words, the people with all the dosh.
There's no China, there's no United States, which kind of pretty much dissipates the entire event, doesn't it?
Yes, it does rather. Well, there'll be lots of people from all these Pacific islands that keep saying their islands are disappearing, even though geographers point out that actually most of them are increasing in size. The Maldives, which has got, which apparently 20 years ago was going to fall beneath the waves. You know, there's more resorts there. There's 12 airports there now, apparently. So there'll be lots of people there seeking money because, of course, the rule at COP is that someone always gets screwed, if you like, and usually it's the British taxpayer because we're the only ones with any money. I mean, to be serious, what's happened, of course, is Starmer is quite right. The whole consensus around both net zero, the net hard left fantasy that you can do without hydrocarbons, the ridiculous idea that you can settle climate science and you're not allowed to debate the effect of a gas in the atmosphere. All of this has fallen away, and you're starting to see the collapse of the whole agenda. Yeah. I was intrigued to see that, say, Prince William was talking about they go in there with all the usual tipping point nonsense and all the extreme weather. Prince William actually turned around and said that the Arctic ice was declining. Even The Guardian last August accepted that there's been no significant decline in the Arctic ice since, wait for it, 2005. Oh. This is a scare they've been using for years and years. Then he talks about going to some place in Pontypridd, where I looked it up. There was a very unfortunate flood. It was a storm Darren, I think it was, which is a typical Atlantic storm we get in the UK. Weather off the North Atlantic hits warm weather in this country, and it dumps a lot of rain. And yes, 200 people homes were flooded. It was not very nice. But to lay that on somehow humans eating hamburgers and driving SUVs is just ridiculous.
Well, Starmer said, Chris, that we're all in. Now, I don't know what he meant by that, because as far as I understood it, by Labour's own metrics and the Conservatives to some degree, they were already all in, I thought. So what does he mean now? Is he doubling down? Is there a new version of all in? Is something else going on?
Yeah, they're doubling down. We are, it was recently said, and I completely agree, we are one of only two countries, the canary in the mine, for the net zero mine. We're the ones who are going absolutely hell for leather with all this nonsense. And we sit there and we listen to Starmer and we listen to Miliband with all their fibs and fantasies about how there's going to be all these green jobs and energy is going to come down and we won't rely on foreign dictators and all this nonsense they come up with. And in the meantime, we're deindustrializing. We have some of the highest energy prices in the world, and we're backing it up with science that doesn't add up to a row of beans. So there is a huge doubling down, and the reason, of course, is that it's a political project. It's nothing to do with the environment. I mean, they don't care. They'll chop down the Ecuadorian rainforest, for instance, get all the balsa wood for the wind turbines. They'll dig up the Indonesian rainforest for the nickel to put into their high-range batteries. They don't care really about the environment. It's not really about that. It's about a political agenda, which, of course, is the command and control. When you control hydrocarbons, when you control energy, you control society, and that's why the people who are there are the people who look upon net zero as their sort of fantasy hard left agenda.
So, yes, it's a kind of you've gone right for the bullseye in that ideology, haven't you? You've gone for the kind of God card almost, that if we don't do this, we're all going to die. So this isn't about, which is why people can lay in the road and glue their buttocks to the motorway and say, oh, actually, no, you're late for work. Who cares? I'm saving the planet. They've taken, it's the ultimate socialist slogan almost. You have to have an enemy, and what greater enemy than we're killing planet Earth?
I mean, they've been saying it for so long now that they've been crying wolf. Prince of Wales's father, Prince Charles, said in 2009 that we're 96 months away from climate collapse. We had all the ice, the Al Gore saying the ice will be gone, we'll be holding swimming galas at the North Pole. They've been saying this 20, 30 years ago, and nothing comes about it. There was a huge, great tipping point report that was designed to induce mass climate psychosis ahead of COP, was talking about how corals have actually reached their thermal tipping point, which they say is a warming of 1.2 centigrade. This despite the fact that the Great Barrier Reef, the largest coral reef on the Earth, is at its fourth highest recorded growth since records began, and the fact that corals for hundreds of millions of years have existed between 24 and 32 centigrade. In fact, they actually grow quicker nearer the equator, and yet they still come up with this nonsense, and they must think we are idiots. And as they don't get me finally started on extreme weather, the idea that they can attribute single event weather to individual actions from humans is just an insult. It's an insult to the intelligence. It's pure computer model codswallop. It's garbage in, gospel out, if you like.
Well, we will watch with interest. I won't take it seriously until I see a picture of Keir Starmer with a green anaconda and some kind of poison dart frog on his shoulder. We will watch and see how that pans out for the next 24 hours, because he's coming back very soon. Chris, thank you for your time as ever. Environment editor at The Daily Sceptic with us on the programme. Your thoughts on this large powwow, and I think one of the crucial takeaway lines from all of this. And remember, just never lose sight of what this is meant to be about. The end of planet Earth as we know it. And that's the animals as well. I talked about the sloths, and there are jaguars there, the otters and the eagles, the dolphins and the aforementioned poison frogs. There's all sorts going on out there. They'll all be gone. Most of them are dead in that neck of the woods because they cut down their habitat to build a motorway to service the leaders who are attending. So there's all of that going on. But the biggest leaders, of course, are China and the United States, are not even there, not even represented at a conference that is purporting to highlight and try and solve that tricky issue of planet Earth finishing as we know it. China and America, not that, you can't make this up. What is going